Hey everybody, Jo Mangum again, founder of The Strategic Agent, and this is part 2 of my interview with Pam Vesper. Now, if you haven't seen part 1, you can go back and take a look at it, but it's not necessary in order to watch this video. In this video, we are going to be talking about the things that real estate agents really should never do. Now, remember, there's another part 3, which is what happens when a real estate commission comes calling and how should you respond. All right, I'm going to get out of your way so you can go ahead and look at part 2 of this really great interview with Pam Vesper.
Don't do's.
Don't do's.
Okay. Don't mismanage trust funds.
Okay, hello. It's kind of like one of those done. Is there anything else that needs to be said about that?
But I'm telling you, it's the #1 reason licensees are revoked in North Carolina.
And it's a black and white trail. And so it's easy to revoke your license when you mismanage trust funds.
Yes.
Because there's a paper trail.
I'll tell you what, and when I was with the Real Estate Commission, in my private practice, people don't know how to manage money, and people fall into hard times, and they make stupid mistakes that they later regret.
So I heard a commission member say, or an employee of the Real Estate Commission say recently, that the other thing that people do is that they trust their trust account to somebody they shouldn't trust their trust account to.
Yeah.
And then they stick their head in the sand and think it's fine. But ultimately, if you're responsible for the trust account, you're responsible for the trust account.
I'm telling you, that was one of the hardest bits of my job as a commission, because I dealt with a lot of embezzlement cases. And the thing about embezzlement cases, it's not the Hamburglar who's stealing your money, because you'd never trust a Hamburglar with the keys to your trust account.
They have on a thing.
Right, exactly. They don't.
It's a little old lady who looks like a little grandmother who's going to rob you blind.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Your brother-in-laws.
Yeah.
Sister-in-laws.
Yeah.
There was a heartbreaking case where this woman was a homeless woman. She's a young girl. She just fallen on hard times. A firm out in the mountains took her under their wing, gave her a house. They built her a house because they had a construction wing. Built her house, gave her a job managing their property management section. So she was collecting all the rents, and for years she worked for them until checks started bouncing, and they started looking into the problem, and it turned out she'd been embezzling money since the very beginning.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say there was man.
No.
There wasn't a man involved?
Yes, there was a man involved. There was a man, there was a man involved. Yes. Apparently she had to keep her husband in a certain style that he was accustomed to. And so but it took her a long time to admit what she'd done.
And the reason I said that, I'm not backhanding men. If it was a man, I would have said there was a woman involved. But the reason I'm saying that is because there's a huge study on lying out from the business school at Duke. They have a consumer psychologist over there, Dr. Dan Ariely, really interesting stuff that he produces. But he talked about the excuses we make when we steal or when we lie.
Yes.
And we usually are doing it for someone versus our own benefit. We can justify it because there's a recipient. There's someone we're doing it for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
To protect or to help or to, So.
Yep. And people will rationalize it. So the first bit is just, telling themselves, I'm going to just borrow this. I mean, they've got all these security deposits, $300,000.
It's just a little bit.
I can't make my rent this month, They don't pay me enough.
It's not going to hurt anybody.
Right. No checks are going to bounce. So I'm just going to borrow this. So a lot of folks that have embezzled actually have a list where they keep a track, at least for a little while, saying,
what they've taken.
Like mentally, this is a loan, and I'm going to pay this thing back. But ultimately, of course, it always gets away from them, and they never can pay it back, and they're caught. So to me, the embezzlement thing was so sad because it's the personal relationships. Oh my God, I can't believe that my sister did this to me. Like, I would trust her with my life, and now all my money is gone, and I've got to mortgage my house to cover the trust accounts, or I'm going to lose my license and my firm will be shut down. And
there you go.
So it's tough. So yes, you can absolutely delegate, and I know a lot of people who don't like math, and so delegate away, and trust people. But trust and verify. So if you're going to give your books and access to your checking account to another person, then you should be looking at the bank statements every month. You should be looking at the canceled checks, because if they're writing themselves checks and you don't get the image back, you're not going to know where the money went. Mm-hmm. And so you need to be looking at who the payees are on these checks. You need to be looking and making sure everything balances. I mean, someone should have seen that the security deposit account was going down to zero.
Right.
Somewhere between, $2,050 or $250,000 and zero.
Somebody should have known.
Not everybody's moving out.
It's funny. I was reading an article, this was years ago, in Forbes magazine. Oprah Winfrey was the cover story on Forbes magazine. And she said in the article, she said, I am asked all the time to be on these boards. And she said, I'm not a businesswoman. I'm just not a businesswoman.
Interesting.
And she said, but the one thing that I got taught years ago, and I have held strong to it, is no one's allowed to sign a check but me. And so she said, I see every single penny. I see every single penny.
Wow.
It was really interesting. It was really interesting.
That's saying a lot, since she's worth like $3 billion.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's lots of pennies that come out of her account.
Yeah.
All right. Trust funds. After that.
Don't misrepresent anything to consumers. So we already just had that big example. Another one I thought of when coming over here today was, I had a case at the commission where the on-site agent of a new construction place, they had their community, and behind the community was wetland.
Okay.
And so they were telling people who were buying on this one street that backed up to that wetland, they were saying, this is a premium lot because it backs up to this wetland and it can never be built on. So you're going to always have this lush forest right behind you. And people were saying, fabulous. And they were buying these properties. And these were modest homes, but they all said that they bought that lot particularly because they had the trees. And so as soon as all of the houses were sold, all those lots were sold on that street, the lot behind was cleared and they built a 6-story apartment building on it. And so I had a whole street of witnesses who all said, oh yeah, Bob, the on-site agent, told me it would never be built on. He had misrepresented the whole way. And he got disciplined greatly for that, because he was either just putting his head in the sand and hoping it would never be built on, or he was affirmatively telling people that it could never be built on. And you and I both know where there's a will, there's a way. So you can get permission to build on that wetland if you create another one down the block a little ways, which is exactly what happened.
In Raleigh right now, we have such a high demand for houses. We're seeing people build houses on contaminated lots and putting systems in to filter. Pumps, filter off. They will build on anything. Let's just go ahead and put that out there.
Yeah.
All right. So what's the next one?
Okay. Let's see. Criminal convictions.
Oh, yeah.
So we talked a lot about this. The rules in North Carolina say that you have to disclose criminal convictions or any other discipline for any other license that you may hold. You have to disclose it within 60 days. And that's from the conviction. So if you appeal your conviction, the clock is not ticking yet. But once all your appeals have run, you have 60 days to let the commission know you've had a problem. And I have a slew of clients who, for whatever reason, decide not to tell the real estate commission about their criminal history.
They're embarrassed. They're whatever. They don't know what's going to happen.
They think they'll be denied. I have clients who don't disclose it on their application, and I have clients who don't disclose it once they're licensed. They just say they're never going to find out. The problem with that is...
They're going to find out.
They're going to find out. Because here's the thing. You've got competitors in the field, and they see your mugshot in the Slammer, or they see, which is an online or a magazine here.
Yeah, in Raleigh,
which is all just mugshots.
It's a buck, and it's the last week of mugshots.
Oh, it's hysterical.
You need to particularly pick it up the week after Halloween. It's particularly good.
I bet it is.
It is. It's so good.
But so what the commission will do, they'll get clippings from the newspaper where they say Bob was arrested for DUI last night, and they'll put that clipping in a file, and they will just wait and see what you do. And so, in fact, the last case that I had, the attorney for the commission said, my client had disclosed it. He disclosed it on day 59.
You have 60 days.
And you have 60 days. And he said, your client squeaked in under the wire. And I said, no, my client complied with the rule in a timely way.
All right, so right here is a lesson. Okay, right here is a time, right here is a lesson. One of the beauties of an attorney who just represents real estate agents is they reframe the way it gets presented to the real estate commission, which can mean the absolute difference between you keeping your livelihood and not keeping your livelihood.
Exactly. Yes, and the attorneys at the commission and the investigators at the commission, they get now, back when I left the commission, it was like 1,500 complaints a year. So it's gone up 25%. That's a significant jump.
Yeah.
And they've got a handful of auditors and a handful of attorneys who are trying to slog their way through all of these files, and they do a darn good job.
Yeah, they do.
But at the end of the day, if you hire an attorney to help you with your case, my sole job is to know your file and to know how to help you with your negotiations with the commission.
And they will negotiate.
Yes. We're kind of sliding into
We're sliding in.
But it's really good stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, I can point out the strengths of your case to the commission members, and the attorneys at the commission are willing to discuss the cases. They're willing to hear us out, and if I can frame the case well, we can get your discipline reduced.
There you go.
And so, need I say more?
Yeah, that's a really good thing. Okay, so as I'm looking down, because we just slid into another topic, so I want to finish off this one.
Okay.
I have, we talked about agency.
Yes.
We haven't talked about forging documents.
We haven't talked about forging documents. It's a don't.
Don't forge documents.
Don't forge documents. And, it happens more often than I would like.
You think?
DocuSign has kind of changed the landscape with brokers, and so I have had some cases where brokers have misused DocuSign, where, DocuSign is for your client to sign their document. It is not for you to sign your client's name. Okay? So let's get that straight. But I have clients like the email guy who added to his email.
Yeah.
I have had clients who have signed their own client's name to a document, hoping to fix a problem that they had caused. Don't do that. Because not only have you messed up this transaction, but now that kind of action goes straight to your character, and the commission is not going to mess around with an agent who might falsify documents. There was a really good case when I was with the real estate commission, and this licensee had he was renting an apartment, and in his rental agreement, he agreed that when he moved out, he would clean the carpet. He'd have it professionally cleaned.
Okay.
Standard language, no big deal. What does it cost you to clean a carpet? A couple $100.
Right.
So he moves out, and the landlord called me and said, I want to complain. The guy happened to be a real estate agent.
Yeah.
He called me and he said, I don't know what to do here, but this guy's a real estate agent, and his contract said that he was supposed to steam clean the carpet when he left, and he didn't. And I just think it's wrong, and he's an agent, and I want to know what I can do. Well, it's a contract dispute, and if you want to, argue it in front of a magistrate, knock yourself out. But as a member of the public, you can make a complaint.
Sure you can.
So he said, well, I want to make a complaint. And so I'm thinking, gosh, there are people out there embezzling hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Do you really want to go down this road for $200 carpet cleaning?
He says, I do. And I said,
okay. He has the right.
Yes. So I opened a file for him. And I wrote to the licensee and I said, okay, your contract says you're supposed to steam clean. What's the story? And he said, I did steam clean. I had a steam clean. And I said, oh, okay, well, this is an easy case then. This is going to be easy.
Right.
What's the company that you had steam clean? Oh, it's A1 Steam Cleaning Galore. And I said, great, can you send me the invoice? And he said, sure.
Okay.
So he sends me the invoice. And I'm like, perfect, lovely. So I said, I'm going to call Steam Clean Galore, and I'm going to find out when they went to steam clean. Maybe they went to the wrong property. Let's find out the specifics. Maybe their guy said, oh, I steam cleaned it, and it didn't get done. So I call up A1 Steam Cleaning Galore, and I say, hi, I'm talking about Elm Street. You did a cleaning there. I want to find out some specifics. And they said, okay. I said, I have an invoice here with a number. And they said, shoot, let us know. give them the number, and they say, that's not our number. That's not our number. And so I said, okay, well, you want me to fax you this? This was back when we faxed. Do you want me to fax you this invoice? They said, great. So I faxed them the invoice.
Yeah.
And they called me back immediately and said, this is not our invoice. That's our address and that's our information. This is not our invoice.
Okay. Dum, dum, dum. Now there's another one.
So I said, oh, this is a bigger problem than it should be. And so I called up the licensee and I said, okay, you need to take a deep breath because...
And I'm going to give you an opportunity to come clean.
Yep. You need to tell me what's going on here. I did.
Oh, so he just went to the mat with it, did he?
He went to the mat, and I said, let me just stop you right there. I called A1 Steam Cleaning. This is not their invoice. They have never heard of you. This is not true. So now you need to tell me what's really going on. And he says, oh, gosh, I just didn't think it was right. I mean, I left the place really neat, and it's $200, and I just didn't want to pay for that stupid steam cleaning. And I said, you're gonna really pay for this stupid steam cleaning. I mean, for $200, this guy he said, I went on my computer and I just created a QuickBooks invoice.
What happened to him?
He got revoked.
Over $200.
$200 because he was lying. He was staking himself out, and he fabricated that invoice. And so, at the end of the day, what won't he do? If you'll do that for $250, oh my God!
And so, right there, everybody makes mistakes.
Yes.
The issue is you can make a decision. You can come clean, or you can lie. And when you lie, the real estate commission starts thinking, we have a character problem.
Yes.
We may not want you as a licensee.
Yes. Yes. So, they're looking at your honesty, integrity, and truthfulness.
Yeah.
And so if you give them something that shows you don't have this integrity, then it can be a problem with your license in general.
Okay.
And so I know it's hard to admit you've made mistakes.
Yes, it is.
It's so hard. It's embarrassing, and you feel stupid. And, oh, my God, you may have really cost your firm some money. But at the end of the day, own it. Own it.
Yeah.
So we had talked about disclosing criminal convictions.
Right. And,
I wanted to make sure that folks understood that, those kinds of cases can cut both ways. So I've had clients who have hidden old convictions when they apply for a license. And then last week they get a DUI and they disclose the DUI. And then they also say, you know what, I'm going to also disclose this other old stuff. I should have disclosed earlier, but I was afraid, and I'm just going to take my lumps. And I have other agents who say, I just had a DUI last week, and I have these old convictions that I didn't disclose, and I'm just going to disclose this. And this is before, unfortunately, they got me involved. And so I said, what are you doing? You've got these old things in your background. You should have disclosed them. Now you haven't been honest with them.
Now you have a character problem.
And it's a current character problem because it's, that was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And this is today. So
they could have forgiven that old character problem.
Yeah, and they will. Like I said, they are reasonable. They don't want to take your license away. License fees keep the lights on at the real estate commission. They want you to be successful. They're there to help you. And so you got to help them make the good choices for your license too. Really.
So, if you're sitting there going, oh, I've got that old DUI, I didn't report it. I'm going to be putting her contact information below this video, by the way.
Oh, my God.
All right. So, let's talk about when the commission comes calling.
Okay.
That's our third category. When the commission comes calling.
Okay. So